Hello and welcome to Meet Our Makers, an artist interview podcast produced in association with Beats Per Minute. I'm your host, Jeremy J. Facette. On this episode, we get to meet Xenia Rubinos. Xenia is a singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, hailing originally from Connecticut, my home state, though she's now based in Brooklyn, and she had a new record come out this year called Una Rosa, her third record. It's out now on Anti, and in this chat, she and I discuss at length a lot about this record. We talk about the themes that went into it, the various styles that she attempted, the sometimes rocky road to completing the record, which started at a time when she wasn't sure she'd ever make another one, and the music box melody that followed her from childhood into her adulthood that kind of spawned a lot of what went into this album. We talk about a lot of other things too, and I've actually interviewed Xenia once before, a few years back, so I think because we already sort of knew each other, we were able to really hone in on this new record of hers. So if you've heard the record, or if you haven't, thank you for listening to this chat. I think you'll enjoy it. This is me meeting, again, Xenia Rubinos. Thanks for joining me and hanging out today.
For sure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. Well, you have a new record. It's been a while since your last one, so I wanted to, talk about it a little bit.
Thanks.
So yeah, for those who don't know, we've actually done this before. I interviewed you. You were like my second interview ever.
Wow.
Back when I was doing interviews for Anthony at the Needle Drop. And I was very happy that you agreed to talk to me and not him. But now it's been some time. So now I have my own show and I'm doing my own thing. So thank you for talking to me again, I should say.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. So you do have a new record, Una Rosa, coming out very soon, October 15th on Anti Records. How are you feeling right now in the lead up to that record?
It's pretty exciting and surreal after working on it for so long to be sharing it, and also to be sharing it in this climate that we're in a pandemic is pretty surreal. But I've been really enjoying the release and being able to kind of just focus on putting one track out at a time has been really nice. And to be able to just really focus on making the work and have the time to do that and not so much with the touring has just been really nice. And it's been an opportunity to reconnect with kind of like the craft of making it, and also getting to do more visuals, which is something I've always been really interested in. Accompanying the music with the visual side. So it's been nice to be able to spend more time doing that.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it has kind of freed a lot of musicians up to, put almost no time into touring right now anyway. So you do have all this energy and all this time to focus on the other aspects, which maybe sometimes get, kind of the short shrift a little bit. So it must be nice to be able to flesh those out a bit more.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And this record was making this record was also very visually inspired, and was like kind of always part of the process of producing the tracks, was kind of doing a visual research and having like an archive of photos and clips that were inspiring the sounds that Marco and I were making in the studio. So it's been really nice to be able to continue that process in the release by making videos and doing photo projects. So yeah, I'm learning a lot. I've never made this many videos in such a short amount of time. So it's just been really nice to be able to practice that.
Yeah, you've been putting out singles for this record for a while now. How long has the album been done for?
The album was just mastered a couple months ago. So okay. Not that long. I started releasing singles before the record was complete. So the first single I released was last fall. It was like it's been almost a year. Was Who Shot Ya, and that the record, I was still making the record. And also when I released Did My Best, I was still finishing. Yeah.
Was it sort of nerve-wracking at all to release the songs before you had the full picture of the record, or were you very confident in where the record would end up?
It was actually really beautiful because the record took shape kind of as I was thinking about releasing the singles, and it was, I don't know, it was kind of, I guess organic is a buzzy word, but it was organic. It felt very natural, and I felt very lucky to be able to work with people who were so flexible and responsive to my ideas, and it just felt so gratifying to be able to put something out when it's still hot, so like it was actually even though the record itself wasn't completed, all of the track listing was complete. So I knew like what order things were going in. I knew basically, each track was pretty far along, somewhere in various parts of production, but by the time Who Shot Ya came out, which is the first single I released off the record, I already kind of had a very strong visual idea for the record. I had the record cover was complete. The album title was kind of like a work in progress, but that idea was brewing. So a lot of it was already decided. So it was actually kind of like a really fun puzzle of putting things together after the fact and committing, because once I started releasing singles, that was it. Like I had committed to the track list, I had committed to the single art and the album art. And it gave me limitations that were really helpful and fun to work in as we finished. So in a way, it made it easier to finish the record, because we kind of knew, where everything was going.
Yeah. It's like it's like a different angle to come at the album process than you've probably done before, I'm guessing.
No, it was completely different. It was like doing it backwards, like deciding everything first and then kind of finishing it from there, like basically having the constraint of your track list, of your A side, of your B side, of the visuals, of how many singles I wanted to release before the release of the record, the videos, like all of that. It was just super helpful. And it was just such a different, it was such a, I don't know, in a way it was like more engaging process, and it made the releases feel so much more tied to the music. It didn't feel like a separate thing, which I think that's what often happens, is like you make this music and then afterwards you figure out what's the video, what's the album art, what's this and what's that, and it kind of it becomes a separate process where it all, what I really wanted for this record was that for it to happen simultaneously. And it was really fun to do that.
And you mentioned Marco. We should say that's Marco Buccelli, your musical partner for years now. And I know that you've worked with him pretty closely on all of your releases. Was it just you two who worked on this one, or did you have other people come in?
We had Chris Cabron, who's a mixing engineer, come in about, I guess, a year into the process. So this winter is when Marco and I kind of finished the production of the record, and then sent it off to Chris to mix. And it was the first time that we didn't attend a mix of of something that we made. So it was like a remote process, and it was scary. And we've never worked with Chris before. I mean, I worked with him on Battles on the track that I sang on, but he engineered the Battles record, and I think maybe also did some production, but that's how I met him. And we have some other mutual friends in common, but I had never really worked with him on like that level. And he mixed Who Shot Ya? And at that point we weren't sure like who was going to mix the full record, and we were thinking about it, but it just like, it was a no-brainer. Like after we did Who Shot Ya, he just nailed it. And then we kind of just kept it rolling. So yeah, but the bulk of the record making process was just Marco and I. And then I brought in a couple of people to play on it. There's a flute player, Domenica Fossati, that plays the title track, and an incredible guitarist, Yaseb Tejeda, who plays on Working All the Time and Ay Hombre.
I was going to ask about the flute on the title track.
Oh yeah,
it's so pretty.
She's so amazing. Domenica Fossati is incredible, flautist, singer, writer. She has her own projects, and yeah, it was so pretty. That piece, I had been, working on it for a while. It's a piece that kind of accompanied me through my whole life, like that instrumental. It's like a traditional danzón, Puerto Rican danzón, and I had only heard it on solo piano, but I was like, oh my gosh, I think this would sound so good on flute, and I was really nervous because I hadn't heard it on flute, but she just came in and just banged it out, and I feel bad for her because when she came in to track it, like the track was completely different. It was really like loud and aggressive synth part under it that was almost like, it was extremely abrasive, and it later, after she tracked the whole thing, we realized that it was kind of out of tune, like the synth part that she was playing to, and yet she was like completely in tune the whole time. I still have no idea how she did that. I was like, yo, oh my gosh, like, it's something with the oscillators, like one of them was slightly out of tune. It was dope, but we ended up taking the track in a completely different direction. I felt so bad because I was thinking it would have been so much easier for her to play like on the version that we ended up making. But yeah, no, she was killer, and was just so positive, and was like, oh yeah, this melody is totally fluty. It has flute written all over it. Like definitely we can make this flute. Yeah. So yeah, it was a treat. It was a real treat.
Yeah, and let's kind of start with that title track, because it is seemingly based on some of the writing I've seen around this coming record. It is sort of a I guess it lent kind of a momentum to a lot of what you were doing here. The themes kind of like that was the cornerstone, I think, of a lot of stuff, that memory of that song. And yet it is kind of an interesting way to start the record, right? Because you have this opening track, Ice Princess, which is just kind of this scene setting, minute long. I hesitate to call it an interlude because it's in the beginning, but this sort of like entering song. And then you have this instrumental title track. Why was it important to you to include this, and how did it fuel some other things going on this record?
The title track really felt like the theme song of this record, and it was just it felt like a very kind of dramatic, cinematic opening, and I went back and forth with it quite a lot and was feeling really nervous about it, and it felt like a really extreme choice to start the record like that. But at the end of the day, I kind of just was like, you know what, this is what it is. Like, this feels right. And it, like if I would have let myself get carried away with the concern of like, who's going to listen all the way through to this, and the vocals don't come in until like super far into this thing, and like, if I had been carried away like that, then I would have not done it. But I think I was just thinking, this is just so right. It feels like the opening to a movie. It feels, like the drama is dialed way up. And it's also kind of like this bizarro moment. I hope it's kind of like, what is this? And I think at least this is me projecting what other people may think when they hear it. I have no idea, but that, that's like best case scenario. That's what it is. It's like, makes you stop and be like, what? But on a personal tip for me, it was just this melody that came back. I grew up listening to that melody in a flower box that my grandma had in her bedroom. It was like a flower lamp, which is the album cover, and it played that melody, Una Rosa, and I always remembered that melody. And when I was in high school, all of a sudden, like, I got this bootleg CD from I think it was maybe a trip that my dad took to Cuba and brought back, like, solo piano, or maybe it was a CD that was lying somewhere at my mom's house. I don't know, but all of a sudden I was like blasting this CD of solo piano, and this piece came out, and I was like, oh my God, that's the melody from the flower box. And I started trying, like, in high school to try to plunk it out on the piano, but I was a terrible pianist. Like, and I couldn't really do it, but I was kind of obsessed with it. And then again, like I completely forgot about it. And a couple of years ago, like maybe 2 years ago, I was having a pretty rough time. I wasn't sleeping very well, and I would wake up like at dawn. And one morning, all of a sudden, I just heard this melody. And for the longest, I thought that I was like writing it. I thought I was making something up. And then I realized, like, oh snap, like that's that melody. That's the Flower Box. And then for the next 2 years, like including during the pandemic, I was just searching for this song, and I couldn't remember the name of it. I couldn't remember who played it. I just was like. And then I started like going on eBay and finding the Flower Box and like hoping that someone would post a video of their Flower Box playing that song. Like and so finally I just gave up and was like, okay, whatever, I'm never going to find this, but I have to make my own version of this just from memory of like how I remember it. And so that's what I did. And that's when I invited Domenica to come and play. But just like the week before she was going to come in and play, I found it. I found the original version.
Oh, wow.
And my memory was like pretty spot on, was like pretty similar to what it was, but I just decided to do my version anyway. I didn't do didn't do it verbatim, but it was, I don't know the significance of this. It could just be a rabbit hole, like meaningless coincidence, but I don't believe in that myself. So it felt very important. And I just thought, this is significant that this has come back to me at this time. And it seems to be a melody that finds me throughout my life. And it's like, I'm now kind of, giving it its propers and making my own version of it. And, it also felt really tied to, some of this, kind of melodrama of, the first track that I'm singing on the record, which is Ay Hombre, which is kind of a tribute to these old, like what we call cortate las venas singers, which is like cut your veins singers, tradition, and like the Mexican tradition that my abuela like grew up listening to, and like a lot of our abuelas grew up listening to, just these very tragic singers, singing about heartbreak and betrayal and like all this thing. So that track was like my tribute to that tradition. And Una Rosa really, I think, kind of sets you in that mood, of like some just very romantic, like melodrama is about to go down.
Yeah, especially the mood of that title track it's almost like a Douglas Sirk, like 50s melodrama. Like it is that kind of romantic, syrupy, like you say, something dramatic is going to happen. So yeah, I think that definitely does set the stage. And it isn't, you say you don't believe in the coincidence that you just found it. And it is interesting that it kind of, for lack of better words, it like followed you. This song, it just like followed you from time to time, from your childhood to basically now. And you say you found it. What was it? Is it like a piece of classical old music? Like, what is it?
It's a traditional danzón,
okay.
Puerto Rican danzón, and there's a pianist, Jose Enrique Pedriera. That was the pianist that I heard in high school, like who was playing that composition on piano. I still have not found a flower lamp that plays that melody. So, we'll see, but maybe one day I will. Sometimes I question my memory and I'm like, but is that possible? Like, is it true? But I think it is true. I think it was playing that melody when I was a kid.
I'm sure it was.
But sometimes it's, your memory betrays you.
Sure.
But that's the piece. So it's a traditional kind of danzón, which was danzón was a style. It was kind of like a social setting where basically young kids would kind of court each other on the dance floor kind of vibe. It was like a little social dance style, traditional. That's like a terrible explanation for it. And anybody who knows danzón is probably like, what is she talking about? But it was a dance. It was a traditional dance, romantic, for a couple to get to know each other on the dance floor.
So you mentioned the drama and the sort of cinematic qualities of a lot of this record. I'm curious then what went into the writing of the record? Like, what was sort of on your mind when you were writing these songs? What themes are you kind of hoping we get out of these songs?
To be honest, there was nothing on my mind at the time that I was writing this record. Like,
was it just like that sort of automatic stream of consciousness sort of thing?
Yeah, it was definitely, I was digging pretty deep. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make this record, if I was going to continue making music, and in what capacity I was going to do that. And I was very separate from basically everything, but especially making music. And I felt like I was a baby, like learning how to crawl or something. Like I was just so disconnected and detached emotionally from like what I was writing, which, would sound like, oh man, that's, must be a terrible record if you're so emotionally disconnected. And, frankly, I had no expectations. I had very little expectations of myself to be able to do it. And Marco was so patient and like so encouraging, and we would just show up to, it was a pandemic when we really started, like going into it. It was like right before the pandemic was when we really started opening things up again, and like, picking what tracks we were going to work on. And he was just so patient, and we would just show up and to the studio, and I was kind of like a ghost for the longest. But what was really interesting was that like, that detachment allowed me to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have done. Like I was kind of out of my own head and out of my own way. So literally the lyrics a lot of times were me like sitting down with a notebook and playing kind of Mad Libs. Like I would just write, I'd have the melody, and I would, write like little blank spaces for each syllable of the melody, and then fill them in, and maybe there was like one thing that I sang that sounded like a word, and I would write it down. And then like, that's how I wrote like Worst Behavior. And Worst Behavior is kind of like one of the more, I think, kind of old school R&B pop song type of leaning tracks on the record. It's very easy. And those lyrics just like came so quickly. I was like, boom, here. And it was just so satisfying. It kind of, again, it felt like writing from a place of like craft and unattachment, and just like, I think I was just trying to find the fun in it again. And but through that process, I was able to also do some really deep healing and write about really personal experiences, like, and did my best, and like grief and forgiveness and processing. And that happened just kind of on its own, in the studio. So I don't think this record is like thematic in the sense that I sat down and thought about kind of the issues that I wanted to talk about. I'm sure that there are themes that come out of it, but it's, I guess, they're accidental. And it's ironic that like, I actually think it may be just the most personal thing that I've ever shared, even though I was like so emotionally detached while making it. Because like I was just being honest, like I'm just there in that process. And, whatever I wrote is like stream of consciousness or shit that was like really deep in there that I was flushing out.
I mean, you mentioned you were disconnected, but that doesn't necessarily, that kind of mindset, I wouldn't think would inherently lead to an emotionless record, because you're tapping in, you're allowing yourself to tap into those like deep recesses of your memory, of your mind, of your feelings without really giving a shit, And so even though you are disconnected, but it then allows you to say, well, I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to say this. So that's probably why it comes out as the most personal stuff you've written. And I noticed that. I mean, I listened to it for the first time last night, and it's clear. I mean, it's very apparent that it's personal and direct and very lyrically in your face. Like, this is what's going on in my head right now. I don't give a shit.
I'm glad that comes across.
It does to me anyway.
That's cool.
You mentioned songs like Did My Best as being very personal. I mean, I won't ask you to get into details about what exactly that one's about. I know it's about grief. You can tell it's about grief. But songs like that, and there are a few more on the record that you kind of do this, where you are talking about something very personal, and lyrically it's very, very direct, but then instrumentally it's so dense. Did My Best is this huge, like growling, very synthetic, it's not dancey at all. It's like this lumbering, electronic, almost industrial kind of thing. And you do this a few times on the record where your voice is kind of computerized or like layered in a way that is sort of abstract. I'm wondering why go that direction versus going another direction where everything you're saying is just so clear. I'm wondering if it was some kind of like safety mechanism, or was it just that's how you felt it had to sound? Like what were some of the motives behind the techniques you used on these tracks?
Yeah, well, and did my best. That was just an accident that happened. Like that track was going to be an instrumental track. I thought that there was going to be no vocals on it, and then we had the beat, we had pretty much everything on the track set, and I was like, okay, this is going to be some like really hard hitting beat synth kind of dark experimental instrumental track. But then Marco was like, why don't you hop on the vocoder and like try singing something? And I was like, no, but okay. And I was only, and again, like I was only able to do that because I was so detached, I think, and just out of myself. And so I like literally most of the time, if he had a suggestion that wasn't fancying, like I was still able to do it and try it because I was more open, because I wasn't in my own head about, controlling everything or having, no, this is the way it has to be. I didn't have like these controlled outcomes that I was holding on to. So I just did. And I was like, okay. I was a little stank face about it, but I'm like, all right. And I thought to myself, this is going to go nowhere. But then I ended up did my best. And so I was just playing and singing and improvising. And that's what happened. So that's how the vocals ended up sounding that way, just because I was singing through the vocoder and we thought it sounded cool and kept it that way. And the vocal approach for the production approach for the record, I think I just had a lot more fun, stretching out and kind of working in the box. And it's the most kind of digital, like synthy type of music I've made. And it comes like I finished writing basically all of it in the studio, like right on the spot. So a lot of it, I wrote whatever using different effects or hearing, my voice in different ways and stretching out that way, which is something that in my last two records I didn't really do. I was more, the writing mostly happened like on my own outside of this, in my own personal studio time. And like, and I come from a tradition of like, if you can't play it, it's not on the record kind of thing. Like, where like, if you can't do it, it's not there. And instead in this process, it was much more like anything can happen, anything can be there. And it was just more following my imagination. So I think, that's where you get more of like, just using effects and like playing with different vocal sounds, but it wasn't in an effort to obscure the lyrics of what I was saying or to hide behind that. It was more thinking about kind of the cinematic quality of the track and what I wanted it to say visually, and kind of playing with that.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you and Marco maybe more than ever kind of used the studio as an instrument this time, like really playing with your toolbox. What do we got? Because like you say previously, maybe you've been, okay, if we can't play it, we can't record it for the record, but this is like, we're going to do everything we can regardless. We're just going to have fun. Was there any hesitation going into it with regard to how you might recreate it live?
No, I just wasn't thinking that far. And, one of the things for me of like healing and kind of coming back to myself or finding what my new self was about just trying to focus on what is in front of me, like on my present day plate, and not thinking about the future so much or worrying about it so much. So I would just literally think, okay, I'm going to finish this track, or like, I'm going to finish this other thing, or I'm going to finish this section, or, and then it started to become, take shape, and the record took shape and the track list took shape. But I was not at all concerned about like, okay, how am I going to play this? Obviously, then the further we got into the process and like the closer we got to being done, that thought came up quite a bit. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? How can I do this live? But it also just, it's very exciting. It was very exciting because I was making the music that I wanted to make, and I see it, as a separate process. Like the live show, it should be a separate thing, you know, and I'm taking my time with that. And the pandemic, for better or worse, has helped like give me more time to figure out what I want to do live, which I'm very, it's almost like making the record all over again. You know, it's a very big undertaking, and I want to do something new that challenges me and that's different, just like this record did, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, they are two different things. I mean, there are so many people, so many bands and artists who do something on the record that they just simply can't or don't feel like recreating live, and they change it up for the live setting. It doesn't mean you won't be playing these songs, but you don't necessarily have to like recreate the studio. So yeah, it'll be kind of interesting, I would think, to say, okay, well, I sort of reinvented what I do for this record. Now I have to kind of do it again for the stage.
Right. I think there's a lot of obsession about that too, about like having to sound exactly like the record. And I understand why that is. But I think, you know, in Black Terry Cat, we did that quite a bit. Like we really wanted it to sound like the record. We really wanted to have all of every single part, every single thing. And sometimes I think it actually kind of was a detriment to the music and the performance. And I think it took, you know, like a year of touring it to kind of figure out, okay, what is really necessary here, and like what's important about this music and how to play it. And it's just a different animal. You know, it's a live performance, like with other human beings in front of you and beside you, and you know, there's a physicality to it, and people are looking at you, and it's just so many different aspects. And I think what I'm hoping for is, to just be able to explore like movement and dance and the theatricality of it. And those are things that I haven't been able to do. And that's always a struggle, because you want to, I also really have fun playing instruments, you know. I'm always like, oh, I just won't play it. I'll just, you know, other people will play it, or like, oh, well, you know, we'll play tracks and play some of it. But then I'm always like, oh, but it's so fun to play that part, you know, like, yeah. So that's always a struggle. But I feel like I am hopefully growing a little bit, and I'm less obsessed with the, like, I think I was very obsessed with wanting to play everything, you know, and wanting you to see everything being played on stage, you know, and as if somehow like someone was an inferior artist if they didn't play their stuff, or if they played your tracks. And I completely don't think that, you know, anymore. But at some point, to be honest, I did. At some point I was like, oh, but they're just singing to tracks, like who cares, you know? But I think, it's been a long time. It's been many, many years. And music has evolved, and I've evolved. And like, I think there's so much potential, and so many things you can do in performance that are so interesting, that are not necessarily about you know, playing bass or playing a keyboard line.
Yeah. And I mean, especially with this record, there's so much going on at any given moment that if you were to perform a lot of these songs live, you would need like 10 hands, you know, like, or like a huge band, then that gets really expensive. And it's just like, maybe you need to just kind of say, okay, well, screw it. You know, X, Y, and Z are going to be played on a track. We're going to play A, B, and C, you know, like, and sometimes that's okay, because it is a different thing. And if people go, especially with a record like Una Rosa, if people go expecting to hear it live, it almost doesn't make sense. Because it's such a studio record. It's so electronic, you know, it's so, like you say, it's so digital. There's so much vocoder and layering of like 8 of your voices and auto tune here and a synth there. That's crazy. It's like so much going on. So I think it would make sense that you'd be like, okay, well, now how do we do this in a live version? Not like, how do we recreate it?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of potential for it to be a theatrical experience, to be a visual experience, to have a performative aspect to it, and for that to be really important, just as it was in like making the record, you know. Yeah,
and I've read a few things that the cinematic quality really was important. There's like characters here, and there's different points of view here, so that gives you a chance to kind of have a lot of fun with the live setting, I would think.
I think so.
Costume changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Less synths, more costumes.
Right, exactly. Who needs to play the music? let the track play. Go change your costume.
Yeah, exactly.
I also really like how with this record, you use a lot of these techniques that are kind of popular in popular music right now, like synths and program beats and autotune and vocoder, but like it's such an abstract record at the same time. I feel like you're using all these fundamentals of the current landscape of pop music and hip hop and jazz and trap and like kind of everything rolled up into one. And then you're like, but it's also none of these things, because it's like a subversion of these things. It's like we're gonna give you all these elements that you think you like in X, Y, and Z songs, but we're doing our own version.
Yeah, it was fun. Like I wanted to, for example, I really wanted a song with like foghorns. Not that that's like anything new, but that's one thing where I was like, we're having a track with foghorns. And Marco was like, okay, noted. Like, and it almost didn't happen. But then I was like, oh my gosh, it's here. It's the foghorn moment. Like,
oh geez.
Yeah. So, or like, yeah, singing with autotune is just such a blast. It's like, I had maybe too much fun. I don't know if there's too much auto. I mean, it's not like the whole record. It's not like a TV moment. Like, but I did I did have a lot of fun singing with auto tune.
And then you have like the closer, which is kind of like almost like this weird spacey lounge song. Like I took it as almost this like late night in this nightclub on like the moon. Like, the lights are coming down, the night's ending, and then you get that little reprise of the opening song. So it is kind of a full arc, I would say.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the track listing and kind of the journey it takes you on. It feels good. That last track was kind of the most stripped back of all of the record. So it's kind of I knew once we were producing that track, I knew that would be the closer. And I like to think about the last track of an album being kind of like a proposition of where we're going, or like a question of like where I'm going next. And I liked that because it was kind of like that song. It's called "What Is This Voice?" is a meditation on kind of finding my voice and like trying to listen. Literally, I was just in the studio and I was like, okay, try to sing without singing. Just sing as if you were speaking. Just like try to listen to your own voice and hear what it sounds like. But like, don't do a style. Like, don't put anything on. Don't do a character. Just try to. It was really frightening. And that's what the lyrics are. Is like, who is that? It's kind of like a voice that I hadn't heard before. It sounded really out of control. It was really hard to sing because it was so out of control. And I struggled with that vocal a lot. We were about to hand in the record to mix, and that night, I think it was like 3:00 in the morning, Marco was organizing files and was like playing, like bouncing something on that project. And I was like, I hate this vocal. And he was like, what? I was like, it sounds out of tune. Like it sounds not in. We went back and forth about it a lot. It was like a really tense moment because literally we were about to press send and I was like, no. I was like, but it sounds out of tune. It was kind of, like, it's like, I don't have my makeup on kind of moment, so we refined it a little bit, but we mostly left it as it is. And I liked that feeling of kind of having this track that's kind of coasting along. It's very easy and it's a meditation, and my voice is very kind of just stripped back to what it is after this whole journey of, like you said before, processing my vocals and playing with effects and characters and all these different things. It was like just kind of a nice palate cleanser to end on.
Yeah, and hearing you describe the sort of thematic undertone of that closer and what you like to do with the closer does remind me of your last closer, How Strange It Is. Just that questioning thing, like, well, what are we all doing here? And then this one's more like, what am I doing here? It's like, what am I doing right now?
Totally.
What is this voice? Like literally, what is happening? What is this voice? So that's interesting. I've never really thought about the closers on this record or the last record that way, but I think that's a really interesting way to look at them. I want to touch upon one more thing that I that I read in the lead up to this record and thus this chat was I think you're talking about Did My Best here when you're saying, as you listen back to the track, you realized that you remembered that this is why you sing. So a lot of what you're talking about so far, and then a lot of what is in, like, the press materials for this record, is that you were having trouble reconnecting with music, and you had just told me that you were having trouble kind of finding your way back into music if you even wanted to. So what was it about making this record that made you remember, okay, this is why I do it?
That moment was just, I mean, it's kind of inexplainable. It's kind of, it sounds so corny, but it's like you just get that feeling, like the hairs on my arm stood up, and I was like, oh, like I just got chills.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of, I guess the best way I can explain it is like a plant that just wants to live, like even if it's in a bad condition, like you didn't water it or whatever, but then all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe the main stem dies, but then there's like another little part that comes out on the side. It's like nature, it just wants to live. It's just going to do its thing. And I feel like, yeah, that's how it felt about making music and singing, where I was like, oh, I don't know the ways in which this works as a career. Like, I don't know the ways in which I want to, continue to tour in a sustainable way, or like, I don't know what my place is in, like the music landscape out there, or like, I don't know so many things, but I know that this feels so natural and so right and so important and to my spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, it's not separate from who I am. It is very much who I am, and it's not about like, oh, my job is an architect, or my job is a writer, or my job is a musician. It's not like that. It's a spiritual thing, where even if I were to decide today to never share my music publicly, I would still make music.
Yeah.
And I think that was the realization that I had. That was like, oh, this is why. This is why you do it, because it's like it's a spiritual practice,
For
and
sure.
like getting back to that kind of the root of it was just so important. And also I think what did my best was like healing. It was a healing moment. That was another answer. It was like, oh, you do this because it's healing you.
Yeah. Do you feel reconnected to music now, or is it still a complicated relationship?
I do. I think that the what I realized is that I was never disconnected to music. I just thought I was, but I wasn't. Like, I think, yeah, I think I am definitely more connected to my spirit. I am in my spirit, and that's where my music is. And so I definitely am in that sense. And I think that the disconnect, or like the question remains about the logistical end of doing all of the things that I love to do and how to do them, and like, making this work, and how to get it made. So I think those are questions, but the most important like disconnect or question that I had about like me as a musician and like me not being a musician, like it's just not a thing. Like, there's no question about that. And it was really scary because I had never questioned that. I was always like, yeah, this is what I do. Like, not doubting it. Like, it was really shook me to my core, because I was like, wow, I had never considered not doing this.
Yeah. And you've been doing it for a while now. So I could imagine that being kind of a stunning moment.
Yeah, I was kind of like, oh, I'm nobody. If I don't do this, who am I? I'm no one, because basically every relationship that I have in my life is, due to music in one way or another, almost every relationship. And even that was like a humbling kind of moment where I was like, oh, though, like realizing like, oh, no. Actually, people, like, I have people who love me just for me, not because I'm making music, or, it's just like, I have family who loves me, like, even if I don't make music, or like if I never did a song again, they wouldn't care, like,
right. And it's not like you'd like stop being friends with Marco, for example.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So like, but that was a humbling moment where I was like, if I'm not this, am I worthy of like love? Or like, who am I? Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, I have no idea who that person is, you know? And people like, I'm gonna be disappointing people, and like people have like a vision of what, you know, you are, you know, or like just even your friends, like on a very, you know, I'm not talking about like people on
Yeah.
Instagram or something. I'm
Yeah.
just saying like like the people in your life, you know, people in your life, they have a, you know, everybody sees you in a different way, right?
Yeah.
So like in a complete, like your, you know, family member and your friend or your lover, like they all see you in a completely different way, but and those all of those ways are you, and none of them are you, you know. And like um I guess I was very, yeah, it was like a moment of reckoning of like, oh shoot, I'm about to like kind of kill that vision of like of me as this person out here like making music and doing performing and singing and doing this thing. What if I, you know, she's gone? Like what if she's not here anymore? Like who else is there? And you know, what I'm left with is like a world of possibilities. Like now that I've gone down that road and been like, oh, I could be so many things. Like, and that's actually like really freeing and beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
um, so I don't know. I don't know where I'm going next, but I definitely know that I'm gonna be with music like forever. You
Yeah.
know, that's like part of who I am in one way or another, you know?
Yeah. So maybe it's like you say you maybe weren't actually disconnected, you just thought you were. So it's almost like
Mm-hmm.
this realizing of that, like the
Yeah.
fact that you are so intrinsically tied to the music you make and that it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's like everything else. It like doesn't really, you know, the math. It's like, you know, just a thing around it, you know.
Hmm.
But it's just super important to my spirit to make music.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the many reasons why this record is so clearly you making the music you want to make, because it is, I mean,
Mhm.
it's pretty aggressive in some parts and then it's pretty soft in other parts. There's a lot of really blunt emotion. Like you were just like we said earlier, kind of just saying like I'm going to do what I want to do and this is it. Like take it or leave it.
Yeah,
So that rediscovering probably helps with that a bit, I would think.
yeah, definitely. And you know, I wasn't putting any, I wasn't putting kind of any expectation into
Yeah.
it.
You weren't trying to do
A
a
thing,
thing.
no. Mm-mm.
Yeah. You were just doing.
I was just doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's kind of
yeah,
cool though.
it was
Um,
awesome.
there's also a lot more Spanish on this record than there has been. Was that important to you? Kind of start bringing that into your music more? Because I know you've done it before on like Ultima, and a couple other tracks, but there is more in the lyrics here than ever. And it also seems like this traditional Spanish music, the Puerto Rican, Cuban traditional songs that you've mentioned already in our chat, have kind of driven you in some directions here. Was it important to you to kind of merge that into your work a little more this time around?
Yeah, I think, you know, on every project, I'm like on a different, you know, I'm on my tip, I'm like tripping out on something. And I think this time I was tripping out on a lot of the music from my childhood.
Yeah.
And I had been listening to like traditional rumba a lot. I was like obsessed. And that's where Sacude, the single I just released, came from, was like just a deep dive into my passion and my love for rumba and just doing my own interpretation of it, incorporating like clave, singing in Spanish, not really, you know, worrying about like what, you know, being consistent or like is everyone going to understand? Like in Black Terry Cat, I was very much like, okay, this is everything needs to be in English, like I want everybody to understand. And I was also kind of more in like a hip hop exploration,
Hmm.
sampling, jazz kind of moment. And in this record, I was definitely very inspired by a lot of like traditional Cuban rumba, like the Puerto Rican danzón, the old crooner, you know, Amalia Rodriguez like style singers, like these larger than life personalities. And so, yeah, that a lot of that tradition is in this record. And like, I think that's kind of like, in terms of the musical theme, I think in there is like me playing with that and messing around with that. It's not in every track. It's not every single, thing on the record, but I think it's very present. So in a way, it's like my most, I guess, quote unquote, like Latin record.
Yeah, but
I
know you've also had some consternation with people trying to throw that label at you in the past, though.
Mm-hmm.
Which I totally understand, because they throw it at you almost regardless of whatever you're doing.
Right. That was my problem. And like, I think I really struggled with that. And I think that was also another moment. I don't know if it's a moment of reckoning. That sounds so dramatic. I'm so dramatic. I'm like, it was a real moment of reckoning. Like, whatever. It was a growing moment of kind of coming to this music and being like, I spent so much time being like, don't put me on the Latina show. Like, this is not Latin music. And then here I am, like playing clave and singing in Spanish and like doing my version of rumba. So
yeah, but again, it's your version, as you just say.
Yeah, but I'm like, can I do that? Like, it's almost like I had to give myself permission to do that because I was like, I've been so like, don't call me that. And then here I am coming out the woodwork like this. So it was really hard for me to give myself that permission and say, girl, you can do whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. And kind of knowing the context behind my feelings at the time when I was really going through it, and like in terms of being pigeonholed and being labeled as like Latin music when I felt that was unfair, and it was just because of my ethnicity, like, and I know what it is and I know what the context is, and the difference between then and now is the scene has completely changed. Like, it's insane. The difference is that like reggaeton is mainstream, that there's 3 million different, up and coming artists that are doing all different kinds of music that are, there's like the Latinx, movement or idea of what that is, or like redefining, like it's such a different panorama, and it's like pitchfork is another thing, like, yeah, it means something else. All of the places that I used to look at to find out about music, like there are people who look like me on there now that do all different kinds of music, and it's just it just doesn't matter. Like, nobody's worried about it. And that just wasn't the case, like straight up, and it makes me feel like a dinosaur, but it wasn't that long ago. Like, no,
it really, what did Magic Tricks came out in what, like 2010, 08?
No, it was 2013.
Wow, I'm so off.
Yeah.
So, but that's good. That's even less time ago. I mean, it's like you've only been releasing records for less than a decade, and already the landscape has changed so drastically.
Completely.
And I remember when Magic Tricks came out, and there are a few Spanish tracks on that record. Ultima's half Spanish, but it's it's in Spanish, and but then there's songs like Hair Receding that are so not the quote unquote Latin music, and they're still like, oh, this Latin album.
Yeah. It was so frustrating. And it was really I just felt like it was a way of minimizing me. And I also felt like, I'm like, this is why we can't have nice things. I'm like, this is, I'm like, this is such bullshit. Like, I just want to be on, the regular NPR show, or like the regular KEXP show, or, I don't want to be on the Latin show. Like, why can't I be on the one that everybody else is on?
It's kind of like when they try to make, like, it's almost like that well-intentioned thing where music festivals or film festivals or whatever are like, we're going to do only women this year. And it's like, that's great, but like, you don't let us into the normal one.
Right.
So like, why should we go to this one? It's like relegating you to the kids' table almost.
Mm-hmm. That's what it felt like. And, again, now there's a completely different landscape, but the truth is, like, I just wasn't fitting in, and I'm just not going to, and that's fine, and like, it's just not, it's okay. I think I was thinking about all of those labels and like white supremacy and racism and didn't have the words for it at the time. And it just wasn't in the culture like it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe I rubbed people the wrong way, or I came across like being angry about it and like too much, or I don't know, but that's just what it was. I know the context of it. So it's a completely different, road now. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to see like a lot of my peers that I came up with at the time, like thriving out here and making the music they want to make, and being celebrated as they should be. And it's a good feeling. But it was a journey to like be like, okay, I can make this music though. Like, just because I'm like, stop calling this Latin music, like doesn't mean that I can't make quote unquote something that I would describe as like a more Latin leaning sound.
It's also such an enigmatic, weird term anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does it really mean? Because the people who came up with that term probably don't have any clue what that would mean. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that ongoing thing at the Grammys, how they keep like relabeling the categories. Because they can't, they're like, oh wait, maybe this doesn't make sense. Urban album, like what the hell does that mean? It's such a larger picture than that.
Yeah, it is.
But it sounds like you've kind of come full circle with your own feelings, with your own work, and also kind of the landscape of music in the making of this record.
I definitely think so. Yeah. I definitely think that that's in there for sure. Yeah.
I think it comes across too.
That's dope.
Okay, so we've arrived at the dreaded lightning round of my interviews.
Okay.
It's just 3 questions. I just like to end with, because ending these is always weird, and I was like, I'm gonna do a lightning round. Okay. So the first question I have for you is, what is an instrument that you wish you could play?
Upright bass.
Oh, that's a good one. You do play like electric bass.
I play it okay. I play with one finger. I get by.
You can play upright bass with one finger. Why not?
That's true. But yeah, I've always wanted to play it. I've always wanted to learn.
Yeah, that's an underrated instrument and underused.
Mm-hmm.
Underused in popular music for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is one of your, if you have any, personal rituals?
Personal ritual. I like lighting a candle. So like set a moment of intention, like when I'm working, or I could even be sending an email that's important. I like lighting a candle or lighting Palo Santo or something like that. That's a ritual.
That's nice. That's also underrated.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I think I only wrote down 2 questions. You might be getting off. You might be getting off the hook. I totally forgot to write down a 3rd one. Oh well. I'm sure no one will care. It's fine.
I got off easy.
You did. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Xenia, for talking to me again. I know, like I said, I've talked to you before, so I really appreciate you talking to me again. I think this is the longest I've talked on one of these things about just the new record, and I think that's because I've talked to you before. But that's nice because I feel like we really got into it, and that
we really did.
Yeah, and I think hopefully people will get some perspective on this record, because it's a big record. I think it's your longest record, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I actually haven't checked that.
But... Yeah, I feel I might have seen that. I think it's your longest record, at least by a little bit, and it's a heady, dense record, but I think there's a lot of good themes kind of going on there, and I think it's nice that we unpacked some of those.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm excited for everyone to hear it. In case you all forgot, it is called Una Rosa, comes out October 15th on Anti. Thank you again, Xenia, very much for talking to me.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Have a good rest of your day.
You too.